Hey, it's Sri here. In today's video, I'm going to talk you through why you need to let him go. Now, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that I'm opening up a few spots for my free masterclass training, which will talk you through the 4 steps that my client Sarah used to be able to save her marriage in less than 60 days. You'll absolutely love it. So all you need to do is just make sure you stick around to the very end of this video and I'll give you all the details on how you can access that free training. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and click on that bell notification as well, so that every week you get access to my latest videos teaching you specifics about how to save your marriage, how to really improve yourself and heal some of those deeper wounds of inadequacy and feeling like you're not enough. And then also learning some specifics about male psychology as well, because I'm a firm believer that if you can understand the male mind and learn how to communicate with it, you'll often get a much better response as well from your partner when it comes to communication. Now, if we haven't met before, my name's Rajasekar and I help women from all over the world to be able to save their marriages, to be able to become the best versions of themselves, and to really create that deeper level of healing as well. Because I firmly believe that relationships are a wonderful teacher for our own selves. And if we can use the lessons and the learnings that we get from our partner, then we can allow that to really help us to move forward and become the best versions of ourselves. And believe me that when you can create a level of healing from the inside, it is amazing how your life can completely transform. Now, I know that if you're on the receiving end of infidelity or you're going through some really challenging times in your marriage or relationship, wanting to work on the marriage is your natural course of action. You're going to want to put everything into it because, you've got so much at stake. Sometimes it's family, kids, obviously the love that you have for your partner, and then also sometimes that feeling of, if I was to leave this marriage, what am I actually going to do, and will I be able to find someone ever again? That can be a really scary thought, and just the idea of being alone can be really, really frightening. But I can tell you now, having worked with women from all over the world in virtually every type of marriage that you could even imagine, I honestly believe that sometimes there are scenarios where it is best to let someone go. Now, as human beings, we make mistakes. People do silly things. Every single person does it. It's just the nature of being a human being. We're not robots, so we're going to make mistakes from time to time. So we can acknowledge that sometimes people are going to go off and do silly things. And whilst I don't condone any of those sort of behaviors, as human beings, we tend to do these things from time to time. I know I've done some silly things in the past, but what happens is if we're consistently dealing with someone who just regularly belittles us, makes us feel like we're not good enough, where we feel unworthy, where we're constantly being cheated on, where we're constantly just being neglected and feeling the sense of abandonment and so forth, then we have to ask ourselves, how much is enough? When is it time to be able to walk away? When is that moment that we have to say, look, I'm done, I've had enough, and it's time to walk away? Because I truly believe that, even if you have children, the children need to have a beautiful role model for what love is. So sometimes I see couples where they just stick together for years because they just feel it's going to be easier for the kids. But in actual fact, the kids end up dealing with the residual impact of it in the long run in terms of their love life as well. So you need to really think about the short term versus the long term as well. And sure, sometimes, it is a difficult situation. It's not as simple as just either do this or do this. There is a very complicated process to the whole journey, if you like. But we have to remember that sometimes it can actually serve us and serve the family by being actually able to walk away. Because what it does is it allows us to set some standards and helps our children as well to look at it and go, yep, I noticed that mum is actually really stepping up for her own self and is really setting some new standards and is not going to tolerate those behaviors. And then what can happen is in the long run, you'll actually find someone and be able to create an extraordinary relationship and marriage with a whole new set of standards. So it's very, very important to look at this from a big picture perspective and not just the short term. So if you're in a marriage where you're constantly being cheated on, you're regularly being treated poorly and feeling like you're not good enough and feeling like you're inadequate and feeling like your self-worth is just going through the floor, then this video is perfect for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through why it is so important to let a man go if he's been treating you in this particular way for a long period of time? Now, the first reason why you want to let him go is because when we hold on to an individual that's treating us poorly for a long period of time, what happens is there are some power dynamics and some control dynamics that occur. And if we continuously allow that individual to carry on behaving the way they do, then what we're doing is we're actually on some level enabling those levels of control. And what happens is, and what I've observed over the years when working with so many women from all over the world, is that they will be in a scenario in a marriage where their husband is treating them poorly. But then once they start to disconnect, once the woman actually starts to disconnect and empower themselves, what happens is that the male actually starts to feel completely out of control in that moment. He's losing that power dynamic. He's losing that control. And so what does he do? He comes running back. And when he comes running back, he basically wants a scenario where he wants to get to a place eventually where he wants to have his cake and eat it too. And that's not serving you in the slightest. And so by allowing the relationship to continue over and over and over, what that actually does is it creates this dynamic where he essentially is pulling you in and then pushing you away, pulling you in, pushing you away. Now listen, I understand how difficult this whole process is. I really do. I see it every day, and I see and feel the emotions that so many of my clients are feeling at this moment in time. So I know how difficult it is, and I'm not in any way blaming you for any of this. You know, these are entirely his behaviors, and he's the one that's engaging in some of these activities and so forth, whatever it is, whether it be cheating or just treating you poorly and bringing you down, or whether it's some sort of narcissistic behavior of some sort as well. But we have to then begin to empower ourselves. And the way that we have to empower ourselves sometimes, if it's regular occurrence like this, if it's just continuing going on and on and on and on, and you've tried a whole bunch of things and he's not really shifting in any particular way, and he's only changing once you start to disconnect from him a little bit and lures you back in, then in situations like that, often the best course of action, sadly, is to really let him go. Because if you continue to get sucked into that pattern, it will enable more of his control dynamics, and I don't want that for you, because that's just going to create more and more pain for you, and it'll actually end up stalling your progress as a person as well. Which then leads me to point number 2, which is that staying in a relationship or marriage like this will only stunt your growth and prevent you from actually progressing to the level that you need to progress in your life. You know, I truly believe that a lot of the times we attract certain partners in order to help us to become the best versions of ourselves. And sometimes that means actually being in a relationship with someone who's not actually helping us or serving us, or actually treating us quite poorly, because what that does is it brings to light some of the things that we need to work on, whether it be empowerment or, you know, healing wounds of authority or inadequacy and so forth. And by staying in that relationship, what happens is we just keep operating at that lower vibration, and we're in these circumstances that are simply not going to serve you in the long run at all. And that I can promise you. You know, and this can be applied to jobs, sometimes friendships. You know, I know in the past for me, there have been instances where, you know, I've had certain friends and, you know, we've been close for a period of time. And then what's happened is we've just started going in these directions, in totally different directions. And if we were to try and hold on to that, because initially it was very much me like wanting to hold on to it, but I found that by just holding on to it, I was continuing a pattern of behavior that actually wasn't serving me in the slightest, and also for that person as well. And so sometimes we end up in relationships and marriages which, you know, were great for a while, and then they slowly start to decline, and we recognize that, okay, maybe it's lasted its course and it's time to actually move forward. And that can sometimes be a case of learning to develop within our own selves and to become the best version of ourselves. Now, I know in the past for me, you know, there have been relationships where I felt like I needed to grow and to develop more, but the relationship that I was in wasn't actually helping me in any particular way. It was keeping me locked in at low level behavior, low consciousness behavior. And that low consciousness behavior just wasn't helping me in the slightest. And it wasn't helping my partner as well. And so it's very important that you want to do the necessary healing on the inside. And by staying put in a marriage or relationship where we're constantly being belittled and dragged down and hurt on a regular occurrence, that is not serving you in the slightest. And that is why it is so important sometimes to be able to let him go, so that you can really put that time and energy into empowering you and becoming the best version of yourself. I know I say it a lot, but it is such an important part of the process, because the real relationship is the one with ourselves. It really is. That is the most important relationship in your life. Because if you don't work on that, everything that someone else does or says to you will trigger you. And it'll bring up all sorts of negative emotions and feelings inside of you as well, which is extremely important to understand as well. I hope that makes sense. Just quickly in the comment section below, I just want you to answer the question, what's the single biggest challenge that you're facing mentally and emotionally in your marriage right now? Just write it down below and I'll make sure I respond to you. Now, the third reason why you want to let him go is because if you don't, it will continue to exacerbate your own wounds and insecurities. See, a lot of the times when I'm speaking to women in my private practice, I often hear that, the behaviors that their husbands or partners engage in constantly makes them feel unworthy, feeling like they're not good enough, feeling rejected, feeling jealous, and so on. And what happens is, if we continue to have to deal with that over and over and over, all it does is it just continues that pattern of behavior inside. And so there is a point where it can be too much. I believe that every partner that we're with is actually a wonderful teacher for ourselves. And so you want to take the lessons and the learnings for a period of time. But if it goes on for years and years and years and years, then there comes a point where what it's doing is it's keeping you locked in that pain rather than actually being able to heal from it. And so you've got to be aware of those patterns. And so if this pattern is continuously running in your relationship or marriage, then there comes a point where you have to say, when is enough enough? Because otherwise what happens is you're simply torturing yourself. And I don't want that for you. And look, once again, I understand how difficult this is. When we're stuck in that pain, it is traumatic to say the least. But if we recognize that the actual job here is to begin to empower ourselves and to become the best versions of ourselves and to heal from within, then what that does is it puts you in a position where you can actually reclaim your control and power. And the way you do that is sometimes to let that person go, because if we don't, then all we're simply doing is just continuously allowing those negative patterns to keep running, and it exacerbates those wounds that we hold on to at a deeper level. And if we hold on to those wounds, guess what? It just keeps running and running and running. And what it'll end up doing is leading you into point number 4, which is continuing your patterns of avoidance and self-sabotage. What this means is that a lot of the times when we're stuck in a relationship or marriage that isn't actually serving us, because we're so afraid of what change might look like, we're afraid of what that new life might look like. And a lot of the times it all comes from this desire to want to protect the family. Why on earth would you want to impact that on any level? And sometimes what that means is we say, all right, well, I don't want to impact our kids, so you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tolerate these circumstances myself, because hey, it's only me, and if I can protect my family and my kids and so forth in the process, then that's a price that I'm willing to take. If we allow those circumstances to just stay the way they are and just to protect the family, whilst that may be a nice thing to do for the sake of your kids, it's actually not serving you, because what it will result in is you avoiding the actual problems that you need to confront in that moment. So let me give you an example. Let's say your husband is just not giving you any attention. He's always grumpy. Every time you ask him for help, and he's basically just going, look, nah, I'm busy, I'm doing other things or whatever. Let's just say that's an example. Now, if you get to a place where deep down you know that if I didn't have kids, then I wouldn't be with this man, then what you're doing is just saying, okay, well, I'm going to tolerate these circumstances as they are. I'm just going to accept them for what they are. but I'm not actually going to deal with the fundamental issues that might be part of my journey to work on. You know, we all have what I believe is some sort of divine plan, some divine mission. And so sometimes that can be in the form of a relationship or a marriage. And so if we're in a difficult relationship and the universe or God has presented us with some of these challenges to help us to grow, and we're not facing up to those challenges and we're simply accepting them because we don't want to affect the kids in that moment, or in the short term at least, then we're actually avoiding the problems that we need to face up to. We're avoiding it, and it actually sabotages our ability to grow as a person, and we stay stuck in that lower vibration. And then what also happens is, over time, we develop this belief of, I've tried everything. And the reality is that we haven't actually tried everything. We've tried a few things that haven't worked, and we've constantly just kept that cycle running where you basically try one thing, it doesn't work, it reinforces the belief that, see, none of the stuff works, and then you just keep that pattern running. And then you lower your expectations for that person because, hey, they're not delivering at any particular level, and then you start to give up. And then every now and then you get this thought, oh, actually, I want to work on something, and then you might try one thing briefly, but not for the extended period of time that you need to test it, and you then feel like, see, none of the stuff works. And so that's how we often sabotage our success. So what we really need to be doing here is sometimes, and with individuals that have been continuously treating us poorly for years, you know, sometimes there are examples where, you know, it's only been over a short period of time. And if it's a short period of time, that's okay. It gives you the opportunity to be able to work on things. You know, if it's continuously over and over and, you know, for years on years, and you're not making the progress that you need to, and you've sought out help, and that hasn't really given you the results that you're looking for as well, well, then you need to think about, okay, is this really the right marriage for me at this moment in time? And is it time that I actually let him go? Is it time that I let him loose so that I can truly heal from within? And I really believe that human beings have a level of strength and courage that they don't realize until they actually, what they call, burn their boats. When you get to a place where you have no other option other than to succeed and make something work, as human beings, we inevitably make it work. But a lot of the times we don't get to that place where we're actually willing to do whatever it takes. And in those scenarios, that's what causes us to stay in that place where we're suffering and we're going through emotional challenges over and over and over. And that's never a fun place. And I can tell you now that whilst I've worked with a lot of women who've been able to save their marriages, I also have a lot of people who I've worked with who have got to a place where have realized that the marriage that they're in is not actually serving them in the slightest. And I know that's a scary thought, but it's such an important part of the journey occasionally to be able to say, you know what, it's time for me to let this person go. Now, obviously, whenever I work with someone, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we preserve the chances of saving that marriage. We want to make sure we do everything we can to save it. But sometimes what happens is we get to a point where we've explored every possibility, and then it's a case of saying, right, as part of your progress moving forward, it does require you to potentially let this person go because it is simply not serving you in the slightest. Now, if you're having to go through that, often the challenge can be of how do I go about reclaiming my sense of self? How can I go about empowering myself, and how can I become the best version of myself on this journey? And it's a great question, and this is all discussed in my Authentic Relationship System training program, which is an amazing program helping women from all over the world to be able to empower themselves and to be able to improve their marriage. And like I say, if it's a case of we've explored all the possibilities of working on the marriage and it hasn't worked out, then we want to empower you to be able to have the courage and the strength to be able to move forward, because we live one life and you don't want to spend the rest of your life in a miserable state where every day you're worried about coming home, or you're scared about talking to your husband, or there's so much fear and anxiety associated with spending time with this man, because that is not the way it should be. You do not want to come from that place. So the training program is an amazing program. You'll absolutely love it. I don't take on everyone as a client. So in order to see if you're a good fit, in the description section below where it says book a call with me, just click on a time there, fill out the short application form, and then I will contact you personally and I can understand a little bit more about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time and see if this is the right fit for you. If it is, fantastic, I'll tell you more about the details. If it isn't, then I'll make sure I give you a couple of pointers so that you're able to move forward and really progress in your life and in your marriage. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I'm opening up a few spots for my free masterclass training, which is an amazing training which will teach you the 3 steps that my client Sarah used to be able to save her marriage from the brink of divorce. You'll absolutely love it. So in the description section below, you can register for the masterclass. Click on that link. Just once again, choose a time that works, and then just show up with a pen and paper or iPhone, whatever device, and write down plenty of notes and really soak in all the information. And make sure you stick around to the end, and I'll give you a free gift that I know you're going to absolutely love. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit the like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And make sure you let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this video, and I'll make sure I respond to your comments as well. And if you want to learn why men always come back after a separation, just click this video above. And if you want to learn how to save a broken marriage when only one person is trying, just click this video above. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one.